What if I told you there's a secret chapter in movie history that Hollywood spent decades trying to erase? Between 1929 and 1934, studios produced films so bold, so uncompromising, that they sent moral guardians into absolute panic. Have you ever wondered what movies Hollywood desperately wanted to bury? The early 1930s marked cinema's most daring chapter, a brief era when rules were scarce and the silver screen became a battleground for art, controversy, and cultural revolution. What films terrified the moral gatekeepers, and what secrets did they struggle so hard to hide? Let's pull back the velvet curtain and discover the top pre-code scandalous films Hollywood tried to erase from history. Babyface, 1933. Barbara Stanwyck. Babyface remains one of the most daring films of the pre-code era, largely thanks to Barbara Stanwyck's unforgettable performance as Lily Powers. Lily's story begins in hardship, but she quickly learns how to use her wit, charm, and determination to climb the ranks of a powerful bank. As she navigates the corridors of power, she challenges traditional ideas of how women should behave, refusing to let anyone else determine her future. Stanwyck's portrayal of a woman clawing her way out of poverty came from deeply personal experience. She grew up in dire economic circumstances in Brooklyn, and like many women of her generation, learned that financial security often required making difficult choices about relationships and moral compromise. Her early marriage was marked by her husband's struggles with alcohol and controlling behavior, experiences that informed her understanding of how women could use their intelligence and determination to survive in challenging circumstances. The film's narrative was groundbreaking for its time, presenting a lead character who is resourceful and unapologetic in her pursuit of a better life. Rather than being punished or sidelined, Lily's ambitions are shown as both understandable and, at times, admirable. This honesty was shocking for contemporary audiences, especially those who believed that women should always follow society's rules. The New York State Censorship Board rejected the film in April 1933, declaring it immoral and likely to corrupt morals. Censors demanded numerous changes before the film could be released, but even in its edited form, Babyface stands as a bold testament to the resilience and complexity of its heroine. She Done Him Wrong, 1933. Mae West and Cary Grant. We feature one of the most unforgettable Mae West performances early in our list. She Done Him Wrong represents the kind of film that only the pre-code years could have produced. Sly, witty, and packed with enough charm to keep audiences coming back decade after decade. West plays Lady Lou, a singer in a lively saloon who manages to outsmart everyone around her with wit and confidence. This film paired West with a young Cary Grant in one of his early Hollywood roles, creating a dynamic that would influence romantic comedies for decades to come. West, despite being 40 when the film was made, exuded such confidence and charisma that she completely held her own opposite the much younger Grant. Her age was often hidden from audiences, but her maturity and life experience gave depth to her performances that younger actresses couldn't match. The film's script sparkles with double entendres and clever banter, allowing West to navigate the boundaries of what could be shown or implied. Cary Grant, in an early role, provides the perfect foil to West's larger-than-life persona. Together, they light up the screen with a chemistry that's as funny as it is unforgettable. Critics at the time were both captivated and scandalized by the film's refusal to play by the rules. Lady Lou wasn't a victim or a saint. She was a woman in control of her own destiny, and that was more shocking than any special effect. Scarface, 1932. Paul Muni. Long before gangster movies became a Hollywood staple, Scarface broke new ground with its unflinching portrait of ambition and the dark side of the American dream. Paul Muni stars as Tony Camonte, a small-time hood who rises through the criminal underworld with ruthless determination. The film is filled with action, suspense, and a look at the consequences of unchecked ambition. Muni brought his own experience as the son of Austrian immigrants to the role, understanding the hunger for success that drove characters like Camonte. Having grown up in poverty on the Lower East Side of New York, Muni knew firsthand the desperation that could drive someone to extreme measures for the promise of the American dream. His method acting approach meant he immersed himself completely in the character's psychology, studying real figures and their mannerisms. Scarface didn't just thrill audiences, it provoked a national debate. Critics and reformers worried that the movie glorified lawlessness, while others were captivated by its intensity and style. Director Howard Hawks pulled no punches, crafting scenes that were both riveting and, at times, unsettling. The film's reputation only grew after censors demanded significant cuts and changes, particularly to scenes that hinted at complicated relationships or showed the impact of Tony's choices on those around him. Despite, or perhaps because of these controversies, Scarface remains a landmark of the genre and a defining moment of the pre-Code era. Hell's Angels, 1930. Jean Harlow and Howard Hughes. Hollywood loves a spectacle, and Hell's Angels delivered it in magnificent style. This lavish production, directed by Howard Hughes and starring Jean Harlow, took audiences to the skies with some of the most breathtaking aerial scenes ever filmed. But what made the movie truly infamous wasn't just the dogfights and explosions. It was the frank depiction of relationships, longing, and consequences faced by young people thrown together in wartime. Hughes's obsessive perfectionism was already evident during the making of Hell's Angels, foreshadowing the severe compulsive behaviors that would later isolate him from the world. His childhood had been marked by his mother's excessive concerns about cleanliness, which planted the seeds for his own contamination fears. Even in this early period, Hughes struggled with the social connections that came naturally to others, pouring his emotional energy into technical perfection instead. Jean Harlow's performance crackles with energy. Her character is bold, magnetic, and not afraid to pursue what she wants, even if it defies the social conventions of the day. The film hints at romantic entanglements and situations that were considered far too risque by conservative standards. Harlow's meteoric rise masked a series of personal tragedies. She had contracted scarlet fever at 15, an illness that may have contributed to the kidney disease that would eventually claim her life at just 26. Throughout her short career, she endured 3 broken marriages and constant health problems that she often concealed from studios and public alike. When Hell's Angels hit theaters, critics were divided. Some called it an instant classic, while others couldn't get past its daring approach to life and love during turbulent times. For audiences worn down by the Great Depression, the movie's honesty and scale proved irresistible. I'm No Angel, 1933, Mae West. If you want to know why Mae West became an icon, look no further than I'm No Angel. Released right before the strictest censorship took hold, this film celebrates quick wit, independence, and refusing to apologize for being yourself. West plays Tira, a circus performer whose sharp tongue and even sharper mind allow her to navigate a world dominated by powerful figures and emerge victorious. West's larger-than-life persona was forged in the working-class neighborhoods of Brooklyn, where her father was a boxer turned livery stable owner. She learned to use humor and bravado as armor against a world that often dismissed women who dared to speak their minds. Her quick wit and frank attitude weren't just character traits. They were survival mechanisms developed in vaudeville houses where she had to command respect from tough crowds. When Tira finds herself in court defending her actions and calling out double standards, the movie transforms into something more than just a comedy. It becomes a declaration. Women could be the stars of their own stories and didn't have to be defined by what others thought of them. The script overflows with clever jokes and sparkling wordplay that have kept audiences laughing for generations. Censors never quite knew what to do with Mae West. She mastered the art of getting her point across without ever saying anything too direct, loading her dialogue with implications that sailed right over the heads of the easily offended. I'm No Angel wasn't just popular, it was revolutionary. Possessed, 1931. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford made a career out of playing women who wouldn't settle for less, and Possessed might be the ultimate example. In this gripping drama, Crawford's character Marion leaves her small town behind to chase her dreams in the city. She finds herself caught between ambition and the realities of an unforgiving society. Crawford's drive for perfection and control stemmed from a childhood marked by challenging circumstances. At age 9, her stepfather Henry Casson began harming her, trauma that her mother either ignored or resented her for enduring. This early violation taught Crawford that she could only rely on herself for protection and success. Her legendary work ethic and demanding nature were, in many ways, defense mechanisms against a world that had taught her that vulnerability led to harm. What made Possessed so controversial at the time wasn't just Marion's choices, but the fact that the film portrayed them with empathy. Here was a woman who made mistakes, pursued relationships, and faced setbacks not because she was bad, but because she was human. The film didn't punish her for wanting more, and didn't ask viewers to look away from the struggles she faced. Possessed stands out for its refusal to stick to simple morals. Instead, it invites the audience to understand and even cheer for a woman fighting for control over her own destiny. That complexity made the film a favorite for some, and a nightmare for those who wanted to keep Hollywood safe. Redheaded Woman, 1932. Jean Harlow. Jean Harlow was never afraid to make waves, and Redheaded Woman perfectly exemplifies her rebellious spirit. In this lively comedy drama, Harlow plays Lil Andrews, a secretary determined to rise in the world by winning the affections of a wealthy boss, regardless of who gets hurt along the way. Lil's relentless pursuit of success turns the social ladder into her personal playground. For this film, Harlow famously donned a red wig over her platinum blonde hair, symbolically transforming herself for her craft. This willingness to completely alter her signature look demonstrated the professionalism that belied her party girl image. Despite her success, Harlow was struggling with the health problems that would eventually claim her life: chronic pain, fatigue, and the kidney disease that was slowly destroying her body, even as she appeared to be at the height of her powers. What made the film so scandalous wasn't just Lil's ambition, but the way the movie winked at the audience, encouraging them to root for her despite her schemes. The dialogue is fast-paced and filled with innuendo, allowing viewers to read between the lines, even when the censors were watching. Harlow's performance is both mischievous and magnetic. She turns Lil into a character who's fun to watch, even as she breaks all the rules. At a time when Hollywood heroines were expected to be pure and demure, Redheaded Woman shattered expectations. Call Her Savage, 1932. Clara Bow. If there's one word that describes Clara Bow's performance in Call Her Savage, it's fearless. Bow plays NASA Springer, a woman whose life is a whirlwind of challenges and rebellion. Raised in the shadow of family secrets, NASA refuses to bow to anyone's expectations. Not her parents, not society's, and certainly not the censors. Bow's fearlessness on screen was born from surviving unimaginable hardship. She grew up in challenging circumstances after her mother's 2 previous pregnancies had resulted in lost children. Her mother struggled with severe mental health issues, and her father exploited her career for his own gain. "I never had any clothes," Bow said of her childhood, "and lots of time didn't have anything to eat." Her grandmother also struggled with mental health challenges, creating a family environment of instability and trauma. The movie's storyline careens from one dramatic revelation to the next, touching on themes that would have been unthinkable just a few years later. NASA's journey is messy and complicated. She makes bold decisions, chases freedom, and isn't afraid to confront the consequences head-on. By 1931, Bow was experiencing frequent emotional challenges, panic episodes, and periods of intense worry. She was hospitalized for mental health treatment, and her behavior had become increasingly erratic. The scandals and court cases surrounding her personal life contributed to a final breakdown that effectively ended her career at its peak. Call Her Savage stirred up controversy for its willingness to show real struggles and its refusal to provide easy answers. Clara Bow's energetic, emotional performance makes NASA impossible to ignore, and her raw honesty won her both devoted fans and sharp critics alike. The Trial of Mary Dugan, 1929. Norma Shearer. Imagine a courtroom drama with a twist, one that puts the woman on trial, not just for a crime, but for daring to live by her own rules. The Trial of Mary Dugan stars Norma Shearer as Mary, a chorus girl who becomes entangled with a wealthy married individual. When her lover turns up deceased, our Mary becomes the prime suspect, and her reputation is put on display as much as the evidence. Shearer fought fiercely for roles that challenged conventional notions of femininity, often using her position as wife of powerful producer Irving Thalberg to secure more complex characters. When Thalberg suffered a heart attack in 1932, she put her career on hold to care for him, demonstrating the same loyalty and determination she brought to her screen roles. Mental health challenges ran in her family, and she lived with the daily fear that she might succumb to the bipolar disorder that affected several family members. At the time, it was practically unheard of for audiences to root for a woman who made her own choices and wasn't defined by her relationship to a husband or family. Shearer's performance walks a tightrope between sympathy and audacity, portraying a character who's flawed, human, and unashamed. The movie's dialogue, crackling with tension and witty retorts, brought new energy to American film. Censors were scandalized, not just by the plot, but by the idea that a woman who didn't fit the mold might actually be likable. The Chicago Board of Censors initially gave the film a pink ticket, adults-only classification, but after pressure from religious activists, they banned the film completely. Pandora's Box, 1929, Louise Brooks. Pandora's Box is one of those rare movies that still feels daring nearly a century after its release. Starring the unforgettable Louise Brooks, the film takes viewers into the dazzling, perilous world of 1920s Berlin. Brooks plays Lulu, a free-spirited showgirl whose charm and independence make her the object of desire and envy for almost everyone she meets across all walks of life. Behind Brooks's captivating screen presence lay a childhood marked by devastating trauma. At age 9, she was harmed by a neighbor known as Mr. Flowers, an experience that would profoundly shape her understanding of predatory behavior and power dynamics. Born into a family where her mother had little time for squalling brats, Brooks learned early to rely on her own resilience and wit for survival. In a society struggling to figure out what it means to be modern, Lulu's unapologetic lifestyle stood out dramatically. The movie explores themes of obsession, consequences, and self-determination, with Lulu refusing to conform to the rules expected of her. Director Georg Wilhelm Pabst fills every frame with intrigue and mood, allowing ambiguous relationships and coded glances to do much of the storytelling. Brooks's later years were marked by financial struggles, alcoholism, and mental health challenges. Despite her legendary status, she worked as a saleswoman at Saks Fifth Avenue in the 1940s, largely forgotten by Hollywood. Her comeback as a film critic and writer in the 1950s and 60s revealed her brilliant intellect and sharp wit, proving she was far more than just a beautiful face. The film became notorious for scenes that hinted at relationships between women, something that was almost unheard of at the time. No wonder the censors of the 1930s couldn't handle it. Madari, 1931. Greta Garbo. No film better captures the intrigue and danger of the pre-code era than Madari. With Greta Garbo in the title role, the movie spins a story of espionage, romance, and mystery against the backdrop of World War I. Garbo's Madari is a dancer who becomes a spy, using her intelligence and allure to survive in a world where trust is in short supply. Garbo's legendary reclusiveness wasn't mere eccentricity. It stemmed from genuine social anxiety and a deep fear of crowds that made public appearances torture for her. Despite her image as a solitary figure, she desperately missed her drama school sweetheart back in Sweden and spent much of her life in isolation and sadness, longing for a love she felt she could never have. Her famous desire to be alone was more accurately a wish to escape the pressures of fame that felt suffocating to her introverted nature. What shocked audiences and censors alike was the way the film handled relationships and loyalty. The boundaries between right and wrong blur, and the consequences of living life on one's own terms become heartbreakingly clear. Garbo's performance is mesmerizing. Her expressions communicate worlds of emotion, often without a word. The film became infamous for scenes that suggested more than they showed, relying on clever editing and the power of suggestion to push boundaries. Even the fade to black moments were enough to send critics into a panic. Three on a Match, 1932. Joan Blondell, Anne Dvorak, and Bette Davis. Three on a Match is a gritty ensemble drama starring Joan Blondell, Anne Dvorak, and Bette Davis. The film traces the lives of three women who reconnect years after childhood, each taking a very different path through adulthood. The story plunges into topics such as addiction, temptation, and the consequences of risky choices, making it one of the darker films of the pre-code era. Davis's intensity on screen reflected her lifelong battle with depression and her complex relationship with motherhood. Even in these early roles, colleagues noted her fierce intelligence and her need to maintain control, traits that would later create conflicts with directors and co-stars, but also fuel some of cinema's most memorable performances. Meanwhile, Dvorak was beginning to show signs of the rebellious streak that would lead her to walk out on her Warner Brothers contract for an extended honeymoon, effectively derailing her own promising career. What sets this movie apart is its refusal to offer tidy resolutions. The women's lives intersect and unravel in unexpected ways, with the script handling difficult subjects with a frankness that must have shocked its original audiences. Three on a Match doesn't shy away from showing the toll that poor choices and tough circumstances can take, and Dvorak's performance is particularly memorable, capturing the struggles of a woman fighting to hold on in the face of adversity. Dvorak's personal life mirrored some of the instability shown in the film. She struggled to balance her ambitions as an actress with her desire to be a good wife, ultimately making choices that hurt her career. Later in life, she endured a rocky marriage, financial struggles, and the burden of caring for her ailing mother, eventually retreating from the spotlight entirely. The Story of Temple Drake, 1933. Miriam Hopkins. Based on a controversial novel by William Faulkner, The Story of Temple Drake is a haunting exploration of innocence, danger, and survival. Miriam Hopkins stars as Temple, a young woman whose carefree life is shattered after a series of traumatic events. The film doesn't shy away from the darkness that can lurk beneath polite society, and its willingness to confront taboo topics made it one of the most debated movies of its time. Hopkins brought her own Southern background to the role, having grown up in Georgia before dancing with the Labasca dance troupe until she broke her ankle and turned to acting. This injury, which could have ended her performing career entirely, instead redirected her toward the theater and ultimately to Hollywood. Her ability to convey both strength and vulnerability came from her own experience of having to reinvent herself when life didn't go according to plan. What makes the film so powerful is Hopkins' performance, which captures both vulnerability and inner strength. Temple is forced to navigate a world where trust is a luxury and every decision has consequences. The movie's realistic portrayal of her journey drew sharp criticism from those who wanted to protect audiences from challenging ideas. Censors demanded cuts, and in some regions the movie was banned outright. But the story of Temple Drake's legacy endures as a film that asked difficult questions and refused to provide easy answers. Freaks, 1932. Todd Browning. Few films have a reputation quite like Freaks. Directed by Todd Browning, the movie tells the story of a traveling circus community where the so-called outsiders are anything but helpless. Browning cast real circus performers in the leading roles, making the film's depiction of difference both compassionate and revolutionary. Browning's compassionate portrayal of the circus performers came from his own background in the world of traveling shows. Before becoming a director, he had worked in circuses and understood the tight-knit community that formed among performers who were often rejected by mainstream society. His decision to cast real circus performers rather than using makeup and prosthetics on conventional actors was revolutionary and demonstrated his respect for their dignity and humanity. What shocked audiences wasn't just the presence of characters who looked different from mainstream Hollywood stars, but the way the film turned expectations upside down. The performers are portrayed as loyal and loving, while the real villains are those who would exploit or harm them. The film's final act, which sees the community standing up for itself, remains one of the most iconic moments in movie history. Censors and critics recoiled at the movie's willingness to challenge social norms. Freaks was banned in the United Kingdom from 1932 to 1963, and was also banned in various states in America and Australia after being pulled from theaters throughout America. Today it's seen as a cult classic that asked viewers to reconsider their definitions of beauty, strength, and family. Night Nurse, 1931, Barbara Stanwyck, and Clark Gable. Barbara Stanwyck returns to our list with Night Nurse, a fast-paced drama that pulls no punches. Stanwyck plays Laura Hart, a young nurse thrown into a world of privilege, danger, and secrets when she takes a job caring for 2 children in a wealthy home. When she discovers the children are in danger, Laura is forced to make difficult choices to protect them. Stanwyck's portrayal of a working woman fighting to protect vulnerable children resonated with her own experiences of growing up without adequate protection. Having been orphaned at a young age and raised by her sister, she understood what it meant to be responsible for others' welfare while still being young and relatively powerless herself. Her fierce protective instincts on screen reflected real-life experiences of having to be strong for others. Night Nurse is notable for its blend of suspense, social commentary, and dark humor. The movie delves into the challenges faced by working women, highlighting both the obstacles and the resourcefulness required to navigate a world dominated by powerful figures. Clark Gable plays a chilling villain, adding to the film's intensity. The movie drew criticism for its depiction of violence and its willingness to portray authority figures as corrupt or untrustworthy. Yet it's this honesty and grit that have kept Night Nurse in the spotlight as a standout of the pre-code era. The world of pre-code Hollywood is a treasure trove of bold stories, unforgettable characters, and cinematic risks that shaped the movies we love today. These performers weren't just playing roles, they were living through an era of unprecedented change, often drawing from their own struggles with poverty, challenging circumstances, mental health challenges, and social constraints to create characters that still resonate today. If you enjoyed this journey into Hollywood's wild past, smash that subscribe button because we're diving deeper into cinema's buried secrets every week. What other Hollywood mysteries should we uncover next? Drop your suggestions in the comments and don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss our latest discoveries from the vault.